Good morning, everyone. My name is Ankit, and you're watching the Indian Express analysis by the StudyIQ IAS English channel. Here we provide you with the analysis of that day's newspaper, including main articles that we have picked up. Also, we make sure to give you MCQs and mains answer writing questions so that to inculcate the habit of practice, which is very much essential as far as exams are concerned. Now, today is 20th of January, that 20 days have passed in this year, and our today's discussion will include as many as, give me a minute. I'll try to restart this program. Sometimes it hangs, sometimes it doesn't. Now, as I was saying, there are many students who are asking me, sir, how do we make notes out of current affairs analysis? Now, to tell you that, first you have to understand I'm already doing the hard work every day. I make sure to wake up at 4 a.m. in the morning so that I'm ready with the proper analysis of the newspaper. Now, in the process, I also provide you with the notes on my Telegram channel. And the most you can do is first of all to take that and download that notes, revise it thoroughly. And there are two kinds of students who make notes every day. First of all, they use digital tools like Evernote, Google Docs, etc. to collate those notes. And let me tell you, this is the best way forward whenever the questions or the preparation for UPSC exam is concerned, because this is an ongoing news cycle. So particularly there may be changes in few months from now. So if you are writing or making those notes in pen and paper, it will be quite difficult for you to edit those notes. But those editing of notes, it becomes quite easier whenever you're making notes in the digital format. Understood? So you do not have to make notes yourself. Rather, what you have to do is just collate the notes that I have given you, revise those notes, and let me tell you, this is the only solution and it is the easiest way forward for you guys. Okay. Now, in today's discussion, that is 20th of January, I will be covering these 6 articles. These have been spread across various subjects. The first is the World Economic Forum. As you can understand, the annual meeting, which is held in Davos, located in Switzerland. It goes on for 4 days from January 20th to January 24. Now, this is an international organization, does not just include nations, but also businesses, individuals, etc., as well as social and civil society organizations. Now, the purpose of this meeting is to hold a get-together for powerful individuals and the world and bring out newer policies. Now, this kind of an article is important from GS paper 2 syllabus, and also from the prelims perspective, we have seen questions have appeared particularly from the World Economic Forum, because they say, I will wait for the program to respond. Now, this kind of a topic, as I told you, is important from GS paper 2 syllabus, because many such gatherings, they are nowadays playing an important role in policy making. And also, as I've told you, that these policy making are very essential for conduction of international relation is concerned. Hence, this is important from GS paper 2 perspective. Now, the second article will be dealing or understanding what is securities transaction tax. In very basic terms, this is a tax levied on sale and purchase of various kind of securities. So, what kind of securities are included and what kind of securities are excluded from the purview of STT, we'll try to understand this. And this is an important part of GS paper 3 syllabus that deals with mobilization of resources, and you understand any tax is a source of resources for the government. So, we'll try to understand recent changes, also what kind of a tax is this and which government levies this tax. Further, the third article deals with abatement of suicide. This appeared in the explain section, and it deals with the Supreme Court's observation on what kind of a death by suicide or what kind of an act can constitute as a act which promotes a person or forces a person to commit an act of suicide. So, we'll try to understand that in detail along with what the observations of Supreme Court in this matter are. Understood? Also, we'll try to look at olive ridley turtles, and this are in news because Many dead olive ridley turtles have been found on the coast of Tamil Nadu, particularly in the city of Chennai. So what are the reasons that why these olive ridley turtles, which are important or for which India is an important habitat, they are dying, and what are the reasons? And also we'll try to look at what kind of protection are offered to these species, particularly from Indian legislation is concerned. Also, we'll be dealing with PM Swamitwa scheme, as it is a scheme by the union government which provides a land or record of land ownership to the people living in rural areas. What are the benefits or what are the features of this scheme? We'll try to understand this in our today's discussion, and it is important primarily from prelims perspective as well as from GS paper 3's perspective. So this is an important development and it appeared in the explain section of Indian Express. Now before concluding our today's discussion, we will also discuss Uniform Civil Code, as the former Chief Justice of India, who is now a Rajya Sabha MP, Mr. Ranjan Gogoi, he has said that India needs a Uniform Civil Code. However, he has also said that the government first of all needs to build consensus around it before introducing such provision in the Indian Parliament for it to become a legislation. Understood? So this is what our today's discussion will entail. We'll be discussing along with solving practice questions in form of MCQ along with a mains answer writing. Now, as usual, the notes for this session will be available on my Telegram channel called ATS Live. You can simply search the keywords ATS Live on Telegram, or if you're still not able to find the channel, you always have an option to scan the QR code like you usually do whenever you have to pay something using UPI. So it is as simple as that. Also, I put important reels which are important from UPSC's perspective on my Instagram handle called ENKTSNGS. So you can also follow me on Instagram besides subscribing to my Telegram channel. Understood? Now, before moving to our today's session, let us first try to solve the practice question that I had given you on Saturday. Consider the following statements regarding the Enforcement Directorate. Now, you understood Enforcement Directorate is an investigative agency under the union government and it investigates crimes particularly from the financial perspective. Understood? Now, the Enforcement Directorate functions under the administrative control of Ministry of Home Affairs, Government of India. This you can naturally say is an incorrect because it functions under Department of Revenue, which is a part of Ministry of Finance. Understood? So that is why first statement here is incorrect. Its primary responsibility is the enforcement of Prevention of Money Laundering Act and FEMA Act 1999. This is right. As I've already told you, it in addition to PMLA and FEMA Act, this also takes into account the acts called as Coffee Posa Act as well as the Fugitive Economic Offenders Act, which was passed after the Vijay Mallya and Nirav Modi incident. So these four acts are the responsibility based on which the Enforcement Directorate investigates financial crimes. So that is why second statement here is correct. Now, the Enforcement Directorate has the authority to directly prosecute individuals under the criminal law. Now, do you think an investigative agency which comes under the executive has the power to prosecute an individual? The answer is no. Who prosecutes an individual? It is the courts of our country, that is district courts, high courts and Supreme Court, not the investigative agency. The purpose of investigative agency is to first of all investigate whether the crime has happened or not, and then file this report in the court, and cognizing or the court considers the report filed by such investigative agencies to held whether the accused is actually culprit or not, or he is an innocent person. So this is what the purpose of such investigative agencies are, that they investigate and then they file the report of their investigation into the court, and it is the court which prosecutes or not prosecutes an individual, right? So third statement here is incorrect. So only second is correct. Therefore, option B here is the right answer because we had to identify correct statements, right? Now, this is the mains question that I will be taking up. This is actually a previous year question of the year 2015. So, this kind of questions, as you can see, the word Uniform Civil Code has actually appeared in the mains examination. So, you can understand such topics are very much important even in this year's mains examination. So, we'll try to first of all solve this practice question before this session ends. So please stay tuned to our channel, as I will be solving this particular question before the session ends. Now also we are in the process of uploading the monthly current affairs for the previous month, and I have taken the first session of economy. I will be taking other sessions also from other subjects. So please make sure to revise these video. You will be able to find this particular video in the video section on the same YouTube channel that you're watching this session right now. So after the session ends, please make sure, for the ones who have not seen this video, to see this video and analyze what are the changes or what were the important current affairs for the month of December, particularly in the subject of economy. Understood? Now, good morning Augustine, good morning Amar, good morning Kalpana, good morning FTY. Good to see you all. I hope you had a nice weekend. Now, having said all that, let us move with our first article today. This article appeared in the 11th page of the Indian Express, and it tells you that Davos, which is a city located in Switzerland, it has turned into a fortress with almost 5,000 army personnel, air traffic restrictions and drones. And why is the Swiss government making all this effort in Davos city? Because this city is a venue of the annual summit of World Economic Forum. Now, why are we taking this World Economic Forum for our today's session? Because you can see there are two prelims questions from the year 2017 and 19, and it asked which of the following reports or indices are published by which of the government, and you'll be surprised to know the answer of both this question is World Economic Forum. That is why I'm telling you such kind of an article are important from prelims. As you can see, two questions have appeared in the same topic or relating to the same organization that we are dealing with today. So you can expect other reports also can be asked by UPSC. Also, such organizations play a key role in international relations, be it relations between two nations or relations between businesses and other nations. So that is why such organizations are or can be asked in the mains examination also. So we'll be dealing in detail about this organization. Now, let us first of all understand the context of this article. As I told you already, the World Economic Forum hosts its annual meeting in a beautiful city located in Switzerland called Davos. Now, this annual meeting this year is going to happen between 20th January, that is today, till 24th of January, and it will be attended by who's and who's of the world governments, businesses, etc. For example, it will be attended by the European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen, and it will also be attended by the Chinese Vice Premier, in addition to other leaders from business and politics. Whereas representing Government of India will be the Union Minister Ashwini Vaishnav, who holds important portfolios like railway, information broadcasting, etc. And he will be heading the Indian delegation. Also, from India, Chief Ministers from state of Maharashtra, that is Devendra Fadnavis, Chief Minister from Telangana, Mr. Revanth Reddy, or Chief Minister from Andhra Pradesh, Mr. Chandrababu Naidu, they will also be representing their respective state governments, and they will try to enlist the support of many businesses so that they invest in their respective states. So such is the importance that union ministers and world leaders are attending. That is why it is important from the exams perspective also. Now, let us try to understand first of all what kind of an organization is this. Now, this organization is an international organization which is there for public and private corporations. So, what if I told you that is it just an organization that represents governments of the other country? The answer is no. It also represents the private interest which is there by the businesses across the world. So, it engages foremost political leaders, business associates, cultural and other leaders, and the purpose of this meeting is first of all to shape global, regional and industry agendas. Also, this body is not headquartered in Davos. Davos is a venue of the meeting. However, this body is headquartered in the city of Geneva, located in the Switzerland. So you have to pay close attention that if a question highlights what are the headquarters of this organization, it is not Davos, rather it is Geneva. So this is an very important point. Also, this organization or the Global World Economic Forum, it was founded in the year 1971 by a mechanical engineer called Klaus Schwab, who is a Swiss citizen, and also he originally set up this firm not as World Economic Forum but as a European management firm. Now you understand the primary responsibility of this forum back then was dealing with the issue of management or corporate affairs, and one of the main features or main principle that this organization highlighted was promotion of stakeholder capitalism. Now what do you think naturally capitalism is? Capitalism is a private enterprise that seeks to manufacture anything or set up a business, and the benefits of this business is usually cornered by people associated with the business, that is owners of the business, people who have invested in the business, or the employees or suppliers of the business. So this is the traditional term of capitalism. However, Klaus Schwab was the opinion that the capitalism should be much wider in nature, that the benefits of capitalism not should be just provided to the associates of capitalism but also to the broader stakeholders. So it includes not just shareholders of the company or the owners of the company or the employees of the company, but also the company should seek to create a long-term value, and in this creating long-term value it should benefit the people in and around living across the businesses, so that the broader stakeholders, that is the society at large, should also be benefited from such capitalism initiative. And this is what the term stakeholder capitalism is, that not just the persons directly associated with the business but the underlying society or the broader society should also benefit. And this is the principle or the dream of the founder of WEF called Klaus Schwab. Now, in the process, you have to understand how this organization is evolved. Now, I already told you back when it was formed, it was primarily related to businesses and how these businesses are managed. However, there were many crises that the world saw, particularly in the decade of 1970. For example, in 1970, due to the war between Iraq and Iran, the prices of oil, they skyrocketed, and it created a sort of oil crisis, particularly in Western nations, that is the United States. And this made the WEF aware that it has to increase its mandate from businesses primarily to dealing with economic and social issues therein. And as a result, the annual meeting of Davos, which only earlier represented business, it came to be included by various governments, businesses, investors, political leaders, economists, celebrities, and now it brings about 3,000 participants in total, and these 3,000 participants, they participate in about 500 sessions that are taken place in the venue of Davos annually. So you can understand the impact such an organization, which is a private organization, has had an impact on the international relation, and not just on international relation but also on the broader economy of the country. Understood? Now, the funding for this organization, you have to understand, it does not come from the government, but primarily it is supported by corporations, and the annual turnover of such funding for this organization is about $5 billion. So almost all of this $5 billion is contributed by the corporates and not by the organization or not by the governments. So this is another important part of this particular fact, that it is primarily funded by businesses or the corporations and not by the government. Now you have to understand what are the key historical role that this body has played. First of all, it allowed the representatives from North and South Korea who was engaged in war to undertake diplomacy, and it favored the approach of ceasefire between these two countries. So it played a key role in Korean diplomacy, in addition to achieving German reunification, where the representatives from both East and West Germany earlier, they met at the location of Davos, and it led to Germany's reunification after the end of Cold War. Further, it played a key role in South African reapproachment, that is the then president, also Nelson Mandela, who was an important leader of South Africa and a leader of other communities in South Africa. They got together in Davos, and it led to a reapproachment in the politics of South Africa. However, the most important international relations role that this organization was that it created the era or created the conditions where the G20 fruitioned. Now, earlier the WEF, it emphasized on need to involve major developing countries in addition to already developed countries. So it promoted a group of 20 members, that is 10 developed countries as well as 10 developing countries, and the finance minister of these countries would meet to deal with financial matters. So this was the genesis of how G20 came into fruition. And this 20 members, primarily the finance ministers, they have now evolved into a G20 body, which not just includes the meeting of finance ministers, but also the head of states of these 20 countries. So this is now an important geopolitical organization, G20, of which India is also a part. And this meeting is now eventually elevated to a form of summit, which last year was held in Delhi. So this is how such important global organizations or the origin of these organizations can be traced to the World Economic Forum. Understood? That is why I was telling you this is such an important private organization. Now, there are many important reports and indexes which are published by WEF. So please screenshot this particular reports that I have provided you here. These are asked before. Global Competitiveness Report and Global Gender Gap Report, as I have already told you, have been asked in the prelims before. So you can expect reports can also be asked in this year's prelims. Now, it is important to note that Global IT Report that I have mentioned here, it is published by WEF, but it is not solely published by WEF. It is published along with other organizations, Cornell University as well as INSEAD, which is located in Paris. So please screenshot this, revise this again and again, that these are major reports and indexes published by the World Economic Forum. Understood? Now, let us try to solve our first practice question. Consider the following statements regarding the World Economic Forum. It is, the World Economic Forum is a United Nations body responsible for fostering global economic cooperation. Although it fosters global economic cooperation, however, it is a private organization and not a United Nations body. So, first statement here is incorrect. The second is WEF is headquartered in Davos, Switzerland, where the leaders from politics, business, academia, they discuss global issues. Although they discuss global issues in Davos, however, the headquarters of WEF is in the city of Geneva, not in Davos. So, second statement also is incorrect. Now, the WEF publishes Global Risk Report and Global Travel and Tourism Report annually. As I have told you just in previous slide, these two reports are published by WEF, hence third statement is correct. Now, you have to identify correct statement. First and second are incorrect, only third is correct. Therefore, option B here is the right answer. Now, moving to the next article. This article also appeared in the business page of the Indian Express, that is page 11, and this deals with the matters of taxation or revenue collection of the union government, which is a part of budgeting process. Which is a part of budgeting process. That is why these kind of an article are important from GS paper 3 perspective. Now, important taxes. Which kind of a tax is this? Is it a direct tax, indirect tax, or which kind of a government levies it? Whether it's central government or state government, you have to remember this from your prelims perspective. Now, the context of this article, first of all, is that government, it increased the securities transaction tax on certain equities and commodities like futures, options and derivatives, so as to reduce the amount of volatility associated with the stock market. Now, there are many investors in India, particularly after the COVID-19 pandemic, they saw that the values of futures and options as well as derivatives, they were fluctuating quite high. So it provided them with the opportunity to make certain profits out of it. But on the downside, these are very risky kind of an investment. So there is a chance if you invest your hard-earned money into these kind of financial instruments, there is a chance that you'll make a significant amount of losses also. So in order to discourage people from participating in trade of these kind of commodities, the government doubled the amount of security transaction tax, particularly on these commodities. However, as you can understand, if government increases a tax, you'd naturally understand the people will try not to participate in trade, and it will eventually lead to reduction in the government's collection of tax. But the opposite actually has happened. Despite the volatility in the stock market or trying to discourage people from investing in these kind of financial instruments, the collection of security transaction tax has increased, and not just by meager amount but by 75% in total. It was earlier about 25,415 crore rupees. However, it is now 44,538 crores. So this is an increase of 75% in the collection of securities transaction tax. Understood? So let us try to first of all understand what is this securities transaction tax, how is it levied, what kind of government levies it. Now securities transaction tax is a form of direct tax, which means the person on who the tax is applied, he or she is directly responsible to fulfill that tax. Understood? So this is a direct tax, just like income tax, corporate tax, security transaction tax is also a direct tax. Now it is charged. When it is charged, it is done whenever you sell or buy certain kind of securities in the market, then these kind of transactions are subjected to be levied, called as securities transaction tax. That is, some portion of your transaction you have to pay as a direct tax against the STT. Now it is levied and collected by the central government of India, that is government of India. That is why this is a central tax. Now the liability of imposing this tax or the payment of this tax is not borne by the investors like you and I. Rather, it is the broker through which we are investing in the stock market. They will pay the tax as against us. Now, they will levy, or whatever transaction we make through the broker, they will deduct a certain kind of transaction called as STT and they will submit it to the government against our requirement. However, the charges and rate of how much STT is levied on us, it will be reflected on the contract note that is between the investor and the broker. So it is a direct tax, but you have to understand that this is collected or levied by the broker and not by the individual investors. Now the STT or the tax imposed, it is imposed as per the provisions of Securities Transactions Tax Act called 2004, and it is specifically listed or levied on certain transactions. What are these certain transactions? First of all, if you transact in shares called as equities, derivatives, equity oriented mutual funds, then your transaction will be levied, a certain percentage of such transactions will be levied as a securities transaction tax. Understood? However, this STT is not applicable whenever you participate in an off-market transaction or you participate in the transaction of a commodity like rice, wheat, etc., or even in currency transactions. So, under these transactions, you will not be levied an STT. However, you will be levied an STT whenever you participate in trades of shares or equities, you participate in shares of derivative or even equity-oriented mutual funds. Now the rate of taxation, it is different for differential type of securities. As I told you already, for securities like futures and options, the tax is actually 2 times the tax of tax levied on equities and mutual funds. So this is how the government tries to encourage or discourage an investor from investing in a particular type of securities. Understood? Now let us try to solve a practice question on this very topic. Now a question appeared on the sales tax back in 2014. So I've curated a same question on securities transaction tax based on the PYQ which was asked in 2014. Now the securities transaction tax that you pay while selling a share is a tax imposed and collected by state government, tax imposed by the central government but collected by state government, tax imposed by state government but collected by central government, or tax imposed and collected by central government. So which among the 4 is actually the right answer? Let me see who answers the question correctly here and who answers first. Now FTY, sir, will it affect shares investment? No, it does not. As you have seen, although government has increased the taxes, however, the collection of government has not decreased, rather it has increased by 75%. Yes, FTY has answered this correctly. Option D here is the right answer. So congrats FTY, you answered this question first and correctly. Now what are others doing? Amar, right, option D is correct. Kalpana, what about your answer? Pradeep, hi Pradeep, you have shared an emoji. Now as I was saying, moving to the another article, this one also appeared in the explain section of the Indian Express, that is on page 10, and this article deals with abatement of suicide, which is a part of a legislation in India called as Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita, which was earlier Indian Penal Code. So we'll try to understand this topic, which is important from polity's perspective. Understood? Hence I have marked this question under GS paper 2. Now The context of this article, first of all, is the Supreme Court of India. It has said that there is a need for investigative agencies like police, investigative agencies like CBI, ED, etc. They have to be sensitive whenever they are conducting investigations relating to cases of abetment or suicide, which earlier was under the Indian Penal Code 1816. Now it falls under the Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita. Understood? Now the Supreme Court in this regard held that while there are genuine cases where people are forced into committing suicide and those should be held accountable and prosecuted according to the law of the land, however, there is also a need for the investigative agencies so that such provisions are not deployed against individuals, particularly from the fact that family members of the accused or the persons who have died due to suicide, they feel that another person is accused. So the requirement here for the investigative agencies is actually to see whether the person who is accused of abetment of suicide has actually participated in the crime or not. Understood? Now, first of all, let us try to understand what is the term abetment mean. Now, abetment, it is actually defined earlier under the section 107 of the Indian Penal Code. However, now it is carried under section 45 of the Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita 2023. Now, the term abetment, it actually means a person is accused of doing something if he instigates any person to do that thing. That if I tell a person, please do that thing, that means a process of instigation, that I am encouraging that person to commit such an act. Also, whenever I engage myself or with a bunch of individuals just to instigate a person, that is also a process of abetment. Further, if I intentionally aid that person in doing that thing, or I intentionally not prevent that person from committing a suicide, that is also considered as a word of abetment. So abetment in another meaning also says encouragement. So if I encourage another person to end their life, it is also called as an abetment. So this is what the abetment's definition is. Understood? So whenever technically I encourage or abet a person to commit suicide, or I not prevent them whenever they were committing an act of suicide, this is a term called abetment. Understood? Now, to prove whether the process of abetment in suicide has actually happened or not, the Supreme Court has said that it is necessary to show that the accused person who is accused of being abetting the suicide, he has directly instigated or aided the person in committing a suicide or not. And only in that case, when the instigation or the encouragement is direct, then only it can be called as an abetment of suicide. Now, the punishment of such a crime is quite severe in India, as according to the Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita, section 108, which was earlier section 103 in the Indian Penal Code, the punishment for this act of crime is up to 10 years of imprisonment along with the imposition of fine. So this is a severe crime of criminal nature. Understood? Now further, as now is the conviction as per as abetment of suicide so easy? We have to understand certain facts, that the conviction rate whenever the abetment of suicide case is filed on an accused, it is just about 17.5% in 2022. Now I am citing the report of National Crimes Record Bureau, which comes under the Ministry of Home Affairs. It publishes reports annually or biannually based on certain kind of trends in the crimes which is happening in a country, and it is called as Annual Crime in India report. Now according to this report, conviction rate, that is person who have been accused of not is actually found guilty, it is 17.5% in cases of abetment or suicide. Now this is quite less when you compare the overall conviction rate for all crimes under IPC, it is close to 70%. Whereas crimes which are cognizable in nature, what are cognizable crimes? In which the requirement of warrant is not necessarily before you make an arrest, and this is the same in case of abetment of suicide, that in case a person is accused of abetting a suicide, the police does not require to have a warrant, they can arrest the person automatically just based on the acquisition of abetment of suicide. Now in such cases, only 54.2% have been convicted. So you can see the conviction rate for abetment of suicide is low when compared to overall crimes or even crimes which are cognizable in nature. So this is why such abetment of suicide is not quite effective in nature, and considering such non-effectiveness of this provision, the Supreme Court of India made following observations. First of all, it said that the cases of abetment of suicide, they should not be approached from a, they should actually be approached from a practical point of view and not should be approached from a way which are diverse from day-to-day exercise, and hence any hyperboles or informal exchanges between two persons, and if that leads to committing of suicide by an individual, that cannot be constituted as an act of abetment. Rather, the police and courts, they should avoid any unnecessary prosecutions in cases of abetment or suicide which actually stem whenever there is a conflict between two people in their workplaces. Because you understand, whenever two people fight in their workplaces, it is not just necessarily something related to their personal grievances. They might be fighting because of disagreements based on their professional relationship, and in many cases such professional relationships are not that bad that it might lead to a person committing suicide. So this is why the court has said that many cases which has resulted into a conflict between two persons in their workplaces, they should not be constituted as an act of abetment or suicide. Good morning, Kundan. Now, what Supreme Court said, that the bar of proof in cases, they will be higher whenever it revolves or it constitutes an official relationship. Now, this kind of an observation was made by Supreme Court. You have to understand, especially because the accused, who was a bank manager, and he was accused of forcing a person into suicide because the person was not able to repay his loans. So considering these kind of a relationship, the Supreme Court has highlighted that the bank manager, he was just doing his job. What is the role of a bank manager? He has to ensure that whatever loans is extended by the particular bank, it is returned to the bank. And in that process, the bank manager was asking another person to return their loan, and in case the person was not able to return their loan, the person committed suicide, and he blamed the bank manager for this act. So considering the plea of bank manager, the Supreme Court said that the bar of proof in highlighting whether the bank manager has actually abetted the suicide, they should be higher. That only when there is an evidence that states that the accused has actually intended to cause harm to the victim, or it has actually committed such a harm that victim was forced to commit suicide, only in such cases the act of abetment should be proved. Further, there must be a direct and alarming encouragement or excitement by the accused, and then only the accused should be held guilty for abetting the suicide. Also, there are many other judgments in the past that Supreme Court has also highlighted that you need to first of all establish whether the person was actually involved in actively encouraging or inciting the person to commit a suicide. So there is a need for active and direct act, and also when it leads to a situation where the victim, he does not see any way out rather than committing suicide. So in those cases also you can hold a person guilty of abetting a suicide. So these are the important observations made by the Supreme Court, and you have to understand that such a definition based on what is a cognizable offense, what is abetment of suicide, can be asked in prelims. Understood? So let us now move to the another article of the day. This article also you can see appeared in the explain section of the Indian Express newspaper on page 12. And this article highlights the important species which are in news. So it is important from the subjective of environment, and that is why I've highlighted GS paper 3 here. Now this deals with a species which are in news quite frequently called olive ridley turtles. So we'll be discussing olive ridley turtles in detail in our today's discussion. Now, first of all, you have to understand the context of this article. This article actually highlights that over the past 2 weeks, many dead olive ridley turtles, they have turned up on the shores of Tamil Nadu, particularly on the beaches of Chennai. Now, olive ridley turtles, they arrive in mass on Indian seaboards, both on western and eastern seaboards, and they arrive in these coastal areas around the period of September and October, and the purpose for which they are arriving on the seashores is actually to breed. Now they nest or they lay eggs in this season, which begins in the late November and ends in March. Now, although deaths of these olive ridley turtles during their nesting period is common, however, what is uncommon is the number of deaths or the number of dead olive ridley turtles, which amounts to about 300 to 350 this year. This number is quite high or unusual this year. So we'll be understanding what are the reasons why such olive ridley turtles are being found dead on the coast of India. But before understanding this reason, we have to understand what are the important habits habitats and the legal protection extended to such species, which you can understand is important for any such species in use. Now, olive ridley turtles, they are smallest and one of the most abundant of all sea turtles found in the world. So you can understand this is not a freshwater turtle. Rather, this is a salty water turtle found in the seas of the world. Understood? Now, what are the habits of such turtles? That they are omnivorous in nature, that they eat plants and they also eat other sea creatures like fishes and other turtles also. So, these are omnivorous in nature. Now, one of their most highlighted behavior is that they participate in a unique mass nesting process which is called as aribada. And in this process of aribada, they found themselves in the coastal areas, and in these coastal areas, on the sands of the beaches, they make sure to lay their eggs and they cover these eggs by the process of sand so as to protect them from other predators like birds and animals. Now, this process of unique mass nesting, which is also process of laying of eggs, is called as aribada. So, you have to understand whenever a term appears aribada, you have to directly correlate it with the sea turtles. Now, the habitat of such animals or the areas where such animals are found are actually found in warm waters in Pacific, Atlantic and Indian Ocean. So, if the question comes, are they found exclusively in cold waters? The answer is no. Also, Odisha's Gahirmatha Marine Sanctuary, it is world's largest rookery or hatchery of sea turtles. So, you have also pay close attention, as a location located in India's sea coast, that is in the state of Odisha, is actually the world's largest place where these sea turtles lay their eggs. Now, let us try to understand what are the protection offered to such species, and before that, this is a process of how these sea turtles are washed ashore in a particular sea beaches, and in these beaches, on the sands of these beaches, these sea creatures or the olive sea ridley turtles, they lay their eggs, and this process is actually called as aribada. Understood? Now, let us try to understand the legal protection that they are offered. In terms of Wildlife Protection Act, they are achieved the highest status of legal protection, that is Schedule 1, which means hunting and capturing of these kind of turtles is actually prohibited by law. Whereas their IUCN Red List status is concerned, they are categorized as vulnerable species, or on the CITES index, they are categorized as Appendix 1 species, which means trade and transfer of these species are actually prohibited. Understood? So, this is the legal status afforded or provided to such olive sea ridley turtles. Now, let us try to understand what are the threats to these olive ridley turtles. Now, first of all, they can be consumed by humans. That means they can be hunted for human consumption, and this as actually a form of threat. Also, they are threatened by marine pollution and waste, that what if they eat plastics or other substances which may be there in the water bodies thanks to humans. They are also a source of threat for these humans. Further, fishing trawlers is actually the biggest source of these threats, because these fishing trawlers, whenever they lay nets into the water and near the areas where the fishes could be found, there is actually a chance that the same area will also be inhabited by olive ridley sea turtles, because these olive ridley turtles, they are omnivorous in nature, which means they eat not just plants but also fishes. So, these fishing trawlers who primarily want to catch fish, they might also catch olive ridley sea turtles. Now, there were many initiatives in order to protect these olive ridley turtles, that include Operation Olivia, which was taken by Indian Coast Guard, as it wanted to make people aware of what are the areas inhabited by these turtles, and also wanted to make sure that the fishermen, whenever they lay their nets into the sea in order to catch fishes, they do not end up catching the olive ridley turtles. Further, there was this turtle excluder device which has now been made mandatory on the fishing vessels, so that these excluder device, whenever they unintendedly catch these olive ridley turtles, they are able to exclude this turtle and allow them to go back to the waters also. Further, the process of tagging was also taken place, as geotagged tags was made or attached with the olive ridley turtle, so as to understand what are the areas they inhabit or what kind of areas they use for the process of aribada, and these areas can be made safe from human encroachment, so as to give the time and place for these olive ridley turtles to lay their eggs. Understood? Now, based on this information, let us now try to solve the practice question. Consider the following statements regarding olive ridley turtles. They are found along they are only found along the coast of India. It is incorrect. As I told you, they are found in coast of Pacific Ocean, Atlantic Ocean, as well as the Indian Ocean region. So they are not found on the Indian coast only, but they are found in other countries also. So first statement here is incorrect. Now they are listed under Schedule 5 of the Wildlife Protection Act 1972. Again incorrect. Schedule 5 means that you can actually hunt these species, but as I told you, the hunting and capturing of these species are prohibited as they are mentioned in not Schedule 5 but Schedule 1 of the WP Act. Now hatchlings of olive ridley turtles immediately migrate to the freshwater habitats after the birth. Now what did I tell you? You have to read the statements of the questions very correctly and again so as not to confuse with the wordplay. As I have told you, these are sea turtles, hence the hatchlings or the children of these olive ridley turtles, they immediately migrate to sea water and not to fresh water. Understood? So third statement here is incorrect. Now we have to identify correct statement. All these three statements are incorrect. Therefore option D here is the right answer. Understood? Moving to another article, but before that, let me tell you an important feature of this course, as the video that you're watching on YouTube right now can also be accessed on our website using this particular link. And why am I telling you to use this link to watch this video? Is because there are many benefits of such courses. First of all, the PPTs and the notes for this very session will be available there itself on our website. Also, you have an option to download this videos, especially in the case when there are no internet connection or your internet connection is patchy. So the YouTube will continue to stream the video and not load the video and not stream the video, and rather than by offline saving of this video, you can watch this video at your own convenience even without an internet connection. Also, you can practice the learning whatever we are analyzing the news article with the help of interactive MCQs that are there on the portal. So this option of witnessing or watching this video on our website is very beneficial for you students. Now this is just available at a sum total of 1 rupee, so there is no harm even if you register this course. Understood? Now let us move to another article. This one also appeared in the explain section of the Indian Express, and it states that the Prime Minister of India has actually distributed some of the property cards under the PM Swamitwa scheme. Now such schemes are important from Indian economy perspective because the process of land reforms, and this scheme is intended to provide records of right to the people who own the land in the rural areas. So this is important from GS paper 3 perspective. Now let us try to understand the context of this article, and as you can see, Prime Minister Narendra Modi, while distributing the property cards under the PM Swamitwa scheme, has said that this scheme has a potential to unlock our economy by worth more than 100 lakh crore rupees. And why is he making such a statement? Because the property cards are distributed to the owners of the land and property in India, and this can lead to many economic benefits which we'll look in our discussion. Now, he said that he has currently distributed about 65 lakh of property card to owners belonging to 50,000 villages in India, and up till now under this scheme 2.25 crore people living in villages have been provided with property cards. So you understand the benefit of this scheme is provided to such a huge number of people, and also such have many important economic benefits. Now let us try to understand what are the features of this scheme. Swamitwa is actually an abbreviation which is a full form for Survey of Villages and Mapping with improvised technologies in village areas. Now the purpose of this scheme is to actually map the areas in villages using drones, and based on the map that is provided or the images of the drone, the map based on GIS is done using this scheme. And based on the maps, the record of property is delineated, that which portion of a particular rural area is owned by which person, and accordingly the property rights or cards which denominate that you have a ownership right over that land is distributed to the people of the country. So these are the features of this scheme, that first of all drones are utilized to map or picture a particular piece of land, then that map is made public with the help of GIS mapping, and based on the maps and images we are delineating the specific property and the ownership of this property, and against this, cards of this property is distributed to the rightful owners of the land. Understood? Now this is a scheme which is implemented in form of central sector scheme, which means the 100% of this scheme is made by which government? By Government of India. Now the objective of this scheme, first of all, as I've told you, is to distribute property cards to the rightful owner, and using this property cards, the owners of the property will have many benefits. First of all, it will lead to financial asset creation, that they can use this property card as a collateral whenever they go to banks seeking loans, or they can even sell or buy the lands, as they will know who is the rightful owner of the land. Understood? So this will help in creating financial asset creation based on the land ownership. Also, it will help government to estimate the amount of taxation and the revenue that they can get from the rightful owners of the land. As earlier, people said that no, I do not own that land, so why should I pay taxes to the government? But now the government will know that A piece of a land is owned by me, or B piece of a land is owned by you. So they will come knocking to our doors that say, you own this land, please provide us with the taxes. So this will help the government to achieve the revenue targets and also take taxation from people. Also, it will help in rural planning, particularly in the Gram Sabha development program, which is used by Gram Sabha in order to delineate which kind of or which parcels of land they will construct commercial areas, or which kind of land they will be utilizing for irrigation purposes. So this actually delineating of specific land will help in actually the process of rural planning. Also, sorry, the biggest problem faced by India in terms of land is actually the land ownership is subjected to many disputes, because people do not have the right of ownership of a land. So there may be more than one claimants to a particular piece of land, and whenever any corporate or government comes to procure this piece of land, there are actually many people who demand compensation for land. So as to reduce the amount of property disputes in area, there is this process of delineating the property rights, and when a person having a rightful record of ownership, it will also automatically reduce the amount of property disputes happening in the area. Now the nodal ministry for implementation of this scheme is Ministry of Panchayati Raj. So you can understand this is a scheme by Ministry of Panchayati Raj. However, there are other stakeholders also involved in implementation of this scheme. In addition to Ministry of Panchayati Raj, there are state revenue departments who are implementing the scheme at the ground level. It is state Panchayati Raj departments, also an Survey of India, which is undertaking the process of drone surveying in the area. Understood? Now the important features, as I've already told you, record of rights are provided to the rural households using the latest drone technology, and there are centers called as continuously operating referencing stations, which, as the name suggests, these stations are established in the rural area, and it provides a referencing point through which you map from that core station X property is located at 5 kilometers from that core station. So this is how the government estimates the distance between two pieces of land and how these lands are located from a particular reference point called as core station. Now such accurate maps which are provided, it is providing a clear demarcation of land holding in a very short frame of time compared to on ground physical measurement. So what is the earlier process of measurement? It was that people used to survey the land using their own eyes, and based on this survey, the time taken to provide the clear ownership was quite huge. So government is levying the help of technology, that is through drones. It is assessing the parcel of land, and based on this mapping exercise, they are delineating the record rights. Okay. Now, based on this information, let us now understand the impact of the scheme. As I have already told you, till now about 2.25 crore property cards have been issued so far, and the drone survey has been completed in 3.17 lakh villages, which covers about 92% of the targeted villages. Now, many states, they have actually achieved 100% or full coverage of the scheme, that is Goa, Tripura, Haryana, Uttarakhand, and the future target is to cover the entire country by the end of next financial year, that is 25-26. Understood? Now, based on this information, let us now see whether we are able to solve the practice question or not. Now, the PM Swamitwa scheme, the scheme aims to provide property cards, rural household owners, mapping of their land using drone technology. It is implemented by, now this is a question for your homework. I will discuss the correct answer to this question before the session ends tomorrow. So please solve this question, and until then, I will move to the next article of the day. This one, as you can see, appeared on the page 6 of the Indian Express, and this is related to GS paper 2. Sorry for this mistake right here. Now this is a article which highlights that the ex Chief Justice of India, Mr. Ranjan Gogoi, has stated that the Uniform Civil Code is a step for national integration. So this is an important context why this article was in news. Now you have to understand the context of this article. As I have already told you, he has said that it is a progressive piece of legislation, hence the union government should implement the Uniform Civil Code. However, he has also asked the government to first of all build a consensus around this legislation, and only after that consensus is built, the government should implement such provision. Now, what is a Uniform Civil Code, if you may ask? Uniform Civil Code actually refers to a fact that India currently, which has a different set of laws based on religion, it should have a common set of laws for all people in India. And these set of laws should deal with personal matters, particularly succession, marriage, divorce, etc. And as I told you, the current system, it has laws based on a different religion. For example, Hindus are subjected to one law, whereas Muslims are subjected to different law, and so are other communities also. Now, this kind of a Uniform Civil Code founds itself in the Indian Constitution in Article 44, which states that the state shall endeavour to secure its citizen an uniform civil code. However, you have to understand, like DPSP, it is non-justiciable in nature, which means it is not an obligation on the government to bring the DPSP. Rather, whenever the time is right for India, the government should look to enact such Uniform Civil Code. And that is why even after, say, more than 70 years after our constitution was enacted, that is 75 years precisely now, the DPSP or the Uniform Civil Code has not been implemented right now. Now, what are the arguments? First of all, you have to understand that warrant the government to bring the Uniform Civil Code now. There are many arguments. First is that it will simplify the Indian legal system. As I told you, current one is actually dispersed in nature, which means the Hindu communities, they have one set of laws. People belonging to Islam religion, they have another. So are other communities like Sikhs, Christians, etc. So all these people, they are actually implementing a different set of laws. So the kind of legal system in India is actually quite dispersed currently. So as to simplify or unify this legal system into one set of laws is the primary demand why India should enact the Uniform Civil Code. Also, we have witnessed that in many religious laws which are enacted currently, the women, they are at disadvantage. For example, we saw there was this process earlier called as triple talaq, which went against the very fabric of gender inequality, because the very man itself, just by a process of uttering the word talaq thrice, he was able to give his wife the divorce. And it should not be the case. That marriage is a sacred union between two individuals, and ending of a marriage should also not that be easy just because that two individuals fight. So this is how in many of the legislations or the secular laws in our country that we have seen belong to different communities, women are at disadvantage. So the primary demand from many of the advocates of Uniform Civil Code is to ensure gender equality. First of all, you have to do away with the laws that discriminate against women and bring one law that provides men and women at a same footing, right? Also, there are prominent judgments by the Supreme Court of India that has actually demanded for Uniform Civil Code. In 1985, there was this very popular case called Shah Bano case. Now, in this case, a Muslim woman, when she was given a divorce, she was not subjected to any allowance from her husband. So she approached Supreme Court that she was unable to meet her day-to-day needs just because she had no money, and she demanded some kind of an allowances from the husband who had given her divorce. Now, it was not permitted as per the acts or the Muslim personal acts. However, according to Supreme Court, the Supreme Court ordered that the woman who was filing the case, that is Shah Bano, she is entitled to maintenance by her estranged husband, as it is the responsibility of the husband to ensure that if the woman who he has given divorce to is not working or is unable to meet her day-to-day needs, she should be provided with some kind of a money as against her maintenance. So in this judgment also, the Supreme Court highlighted that we need to bring a Uniform Civil Code so as to not put any women like Shah Bano in such a grave threat. Also, there were many instances like Jordan Dingdia case or the case belonged to Sarla Mugdal case. In these judgments also, the Supreme Court has said or left it for the government that it should bring a uniform civil code whenever the conditions of country is as such. Also, there is a need to bring a sense of oneness in India. As I've already told you, whenever there are separate set of laws for different kind of communities, it breeds the process of communalism, which is detrimental to any diverse and democratic country like India. So as to reduce the amount of divide that exists in a country and to promote sense of oneness, we need one set of laws, which is the Uniform Civil Code. So these are the set of arguments that demand for Uniform Civil Code. Now let us try to understand what are the arguments that says that India is not ready for Uniform Civil Code. These are first of all that says that there are diversity in secular laws like Transfer of Property Act, Evidence Act. Even the criminal legislations in India, they are subjected to amendments by state governments. So in practice, as per the amendments made by different state government, we have seen that even the secular civil laws, they have witnessed many changes as per the locations of the country. So the people who are advocating against the Uniform Civil Code, they say that whenever there is a possibility of diversity in our secular civil laws also, so how can you ensure that personal laws are not diverse? So this is first argument. Also, in terms of technical arguments, one says that the personal laws is not mentioned in the union list, rather it is mentioned in the concurrent list of the Schedule 7th of the Indian Constitution. So it is actually not the exclusive jurisdiction of the union government, but even the state governments can legislate on such Uniform Civil Code, and hence we do not need a civil code uniformly for the whole of India. Also, it said that that goes against the very feature of diversity. As we have already noticed, India is a diverse country in terms of religion, in terms of languages, and this is a feature of India. So as to unify people and do away with the diversity goes against the very fabric of our country. Also, as per the various judgments and politicians across the India, there is actually absence of national consensus on the same issue, because people specifically from minority communities, they are afraid that whenever an uniform civil code will be enacted, it will be enacted based on the provisions of the majority community, and that will lead to exclusion of minority community. Hence there is an absence of national consensus. Also, back in 2018, the Law Commission of India said that although a uniform civil code is mentioned in the constitution, however it is not desirable for India to bring uniform civil code. So these are the arguments cited by the people who are against the uniform civil code. Now, before the end of this discussion, let us try to understand what is the way forward, or what is the process through which we can enact the Uniform Civil Code. First of all, there is a need for evolution of consensus that the government should need to undertake information, education and communication campaigns so as to make people aware the benefits and challenges for Uniform Civil Code. Also, there are arguments that say, first of all, there is a need to codify the personal laws that exist in our country, because currently only a few laws in our country are in codified nature, wherever the implementation and interpretation of many other laws are not codified. So first of all, the government should take the process of codifying all the personal laws in a country, and once the codification is done, the government should take reforms in personal laws wherever there is a sense of discrimination against women or any other community in nature. So first of all, before enacting the Union Civil Code, there is a need for codification, and after codification, if there is a form of discrimination, that should be reformed by the government individually. And all of this is actually to eradicate the process of discrimination, as I already told you. Also, the government or the people are saying that there is first of all the need for the government to enact a model uniform civil code, and based on this model civil code, various states can enact their respective legislation to as to regulate the personal matters based on different states, and this will help government or Indian government in general to perceive or protect the India's diversity while also eradicating the process of discrimination in the India's personal laws. Understood? So these are the set of reasons how you can enact the Uniform Civil Code in India. Now, before ending of our session, let us try to solve this practice question, discuss the possible factors that inhibit India from enacting a uniform civil code as provided in the directive principles of state policy. So as usual, you will start your answer with an introduction that what is uniform civil code, that it is a set of personal laws, which means it is applicable on all the people of in our country, and it is related to set of personal laws. Understood? Now you will also highlight that it is Article 44 of the Indian Constitution, which is a part of directive principle of state policy. It endeavors that the state shall bring a uniform civil code. However, being non-justiciable in nature, it is not mandatory on the government to bring the uniform civil code. Rather, it is at the discretion of the government that if and when it should bring the uniform civil code. So this should constitute the introduction of the answer. Also, the factors which are inhibiting India from enacting the civil code, here you will list what are the arguments given by people against enacting the uniform civil code. You will say that there are diversity in secular laws in our country, the recommendations of law commission, that it goes against the very fabric of diversity, or you can also add certain points that there is a lack of national consensus, or the point that personal laws are mentioned in the concurrent list, so it is not the exclusive responsibility of the union government to bring the uniform civil code. Rather, it should be the state government that should bring the uniform civil code. So this is the reason or the part of your body where you will write the arguments which are against the implementation of UCC, right? So this is how you will approach this answer. Now, in conclusion of your answer, you will highlight the need that first of all, there is a need for national consensus on the issue. And as a way forward, in order to build national consensus, what you need to do is to first of all codify the laws of personal nature in India, and based on this codification, once you identify what are the areas where there are differences between man and women, you can eradicate the differences or diversity. Understood? So this is how you will conclude your answer, that first of all you will say that national consensus is necessary, and a piecemeal approach by codifying the laws, eradicating the discrimination is how you move towards the uniform civil code. Understood? So based on this discussion, please try to write the answer. Many of you actually submit the answer both on group or to me personally. So you have an option. If you don't feel comfortable to submit the answers in public, you can also DM me in private. Understood? So please inculcate the habit of answer writing, as it is very much important. And if you have any problem in submitting the answers, you know this is the page where you submit the answers, called as ATS Live on Telegram, or you can also scan this QR. So this was from my side all the important articles for today. I'll see you again tomorrow 10 AM sharp. Until then, keep reading, keep analyzing, and more importantly, keep writing the answers. So until then, I bid you a goodbye.